Good evening and welcome to News Sources. My name is Dennis Onsarigo. Tonight we speak to the government of the day. The senseless killings of our own police officers in Kapenguria underlies the toll homegrown insecurity has taken on our own law enforcement agents. Just last month, police officers were killed by Al-Shabaab militants in northern Kenya. The government has been chest thumping about containing terror attacks. Last week, residents razed down a police station in Mlolongo, and the police service is under fire for extrajudicial killings. It is time the Inspector General of Police, Joseph Boynet, and the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Joseph Nkaiseri, contained things or resigned. News Sources starts now. First, the highlights.
Torture, sometimes death.
Yes.
What if Baba said, for instance, Mutunga Tosha?
You know,
Mutunga,
first of all,
it's over.
first
It's
of all,
finished. Huh? It's finished.
first of
Get
all,
shot.
Jeff,
Tonight, there is conflicting information about the identity of a gunman who stormed a police station and shot 6 police officers dead 8 hours into a siege in Kapenguria. The National Police Service told the country that a suspected terror suspect killed 6 police officers. The story has since changed. It was not a terror suspect, but a policeman gone mad. That's where we are starting off tonight. Joining me is Milton Nyakundi, a journalist. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis.
Jekonia Okoth, your first time here. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Dennis.
And our very own Roslyn Obala. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Jekonia, what are police telling us?
They're telling us that it was one of their own. All along, we've believed since morning that it was the gunman who was arrested yesterday. And that's what everybody believed, only to come and find that it's one of them. You see, I think that's a joke of the highest order.
Roslyn, two statements in a span of 2 or 3 hours. Are police that behind in terms of news?
I think these are exposed our officers and especially the intelligence service that indeed we are not in touch. We are not in control, as we've been put to believe by the Inspector General and Interior Minister. Because if a station that we expect our officers to protect both lives and property can be under attack for almost 8 hours, and they're not aware of exactly what is happening, to the extent that we are getting conflicting statements, it's a worrying trend. Either we are losing our forces or something is not right, or the command, there is a gap within the command.
Milton, we have had a chance of looking at the images of the policeman or the terror suspect who say to have shot and killed 6 of his own officers. This man is adorned in a beard just like you. Kenyan police officers are not allowed to have a beard while on duty. What happened here?
I think this exposes really a very unfortunate scenario for a country like Kenya that keeps boasting about how our numbers in terms of recruitment to meet the international standards of, police to citizens. It then begs the question: are we getting the right people into the force? Are these people in the right state of mind? Are the living conditions, are the terms of employment for our forces really subjecting them to what could be psychological issues that then need to be addressed? But beyond that, I think it also exposes a force, a command within the force that is not confident. It does not even have reliable sources about a police station. I was in Kilelengwani, I think, in 2012, when villagers attacked a police post and killed a total of about 38 people. That was a different scenario. But this is a police station which was guarded. There is a police officer on duty, but then you give information that there was a terror suspect who, snatched a gun. A gun is not.
It's not a walking stick. Roslyn,
that you can just pick and shoot people. And
indeed,
for them to later.
a gun is not a walking stick. That is what
a serious
the
problem.
former commissioner of police Hussein Ali used to tell me, that we can't license you to carry a gun because a gun is not a walking stick. But Roslyn, how did it get to a point where the Inspector General Police decides to inform the media that this man was a suspected terror guy who tried to snatch a gun from a station commander, a duty officer? And this begs the question then, what happened after this? If this man was out to either rescue the man who had been arrested earlier, what happened?
What we are seeing here is that there is a communication gap, because if this is a station that even our topmost officers cannot account for who was on duty at that particular time and what exactly happened, because if they were aware of how many officers were on duty and then they knew that some of them had lost their life in the line of duty, then because of that they will have come up with something a bit concrete, and not to take Kenyans off the line, only to come back and correct and say that we have since established that it was one of our own. It means the station did not have a serious person in charge.
Is it not scary, Jekonia, to have a national police service that does not know how many officers were stationed in this particular police station or the identity of this man? What were they fighting for the last 8 hours before they finally said, sorry, we are sorry, we killed this guy, but he's not the guy we killed, we have killed this guy, and these are the images?
I think, with all due respect to our National Police Service, I think they didn't know. But I must say that the same force that they use to know the opposition bloggers and track them down, they should be on top of things.
I want to disagree very, very strongly. It is not a force that does not have information. This is a command that is clearly not trustworthy, because I am saying, if I am on duty, like now, I mean, Dennis is our host here tonight, I would expect that the highest command within the Standard Group would be aware that Dennis is on duty, and if there is something that happens that falls within his portfolio, then they would be able to get the information from Dennis. So if Dennis is not giving you accurate information, it means Dennis has no confidence in you or is not loyal to the office that you hold. I think for me that is as simple as
maybe just to interject there, I think when this thing was a siege that started at around 5:30 in the morning. By then, I think I expected that the people who were in charge of that station, since we had lost the OCS, would have at least summoned the officers who were stationed in that station, so that because of that they were able to say, we can account for 5, but we cannot account for 2. Then we start from there to know who are exactly missing and where are they.
But you see, the other question,
we're still staying with that matter of that rogue policeman, and how a rogue policeman and a terrorist sympathizer, as it were, managed to walk into a police station. The symbol of state power has baffled the country. Where were the local police officers? Were they well equipped? Where was intelligence for the National Intelligence Service? Milton, where does this leave us? I mean, you cannot just walk into a police station dressed in a turban, grab a gun from one of the officers, and go ahead and kill your fellow officers without anyone noticing.
I think, like I said, it is very scary for any ordinary citizen. When it happened in 2012, citizens, ordinary wananchi attacking a police station, I thought that was scary, but I think this is even worse, because one, it means even the people that are being held in custody are not safe. Yet that is a responsibility of the state, which then has to protect them. But if someone can walk in and attack not just those in custody, but even those manning a police station, that is very scary. And I think in other jurisdictions, the CS and the IG, to say the very least, would have gone home by now.
But Roslyn, official incompetence being perpetuated by the Interior Cabinet Secretary and to some extent a clueless Inspector General Police.
You can look at it in terms of incompetence, or you can look at it in terms of a force that is in war with itself. Because here we are seeing a station, and this is not the first time we are seeing officers under this, or fellow officers killing other officers. It tells us a lot about the force we have, because these are the people who have entrusted with the responsibility to protect the citizens and also protect properties. Now, when it comes at that turning against each other, and especially in a station like this, where the first thing you could see this person did was to turn against even his senior, tells us that it was beyond. If indeed the person is an officer, then this thing goes beyond just being somebody who was either psychological or seeking revenge or something, but there is more that we need to know, that something is not right with our officers.
Jekonia, there's an ongoing court proceeding over the killing of a lawyer, a taxi driver, and a client some time back. That has not even left the headlines in this country, and then you have this. Are we staring at an official rogue police force, or we have some serious underlying issues that needs to be addressed as early as yesterday?
I think one thing I would say is that I think there's a serious breakdown in chain of command, because it's possible. I've walked into a police station to look at an OB. There was a story I was doing, and because the OCS was not in, the deputy who was there at that time could not allow me to see that until he got
Instructions
orders from above for a guy who probably was on leave. So I think there's a serious breakdown of communication. And then, as Milton says here, that somebody should have gone home by now. In Kenya, we don't resign. It's impossible. You'd rather die. It's impossible. It doesn't just happen.
Fine, it may not happen, but the other question that perhaps I was asking myself all day and putting into perspective all that has happened over the last few days is that could there be a deliberate strategy by the powers that be, and I'm saying this with all due respect, that we are going to create confusion in the country for reasons I do not understand. Because why would a Inspector General of Police give an information that is not verified and not verifiable?
It's false.
Yeah.
And
Give false information.
and still go ahead 8 hours later to come and tell the country this was not what we told you earlier, it is different. The question is, what do you believe? Do we believe the first story? Do we believe the other? What might have happened over the 8-hour period that now information is changing?
Were they cooking this because we had a chance of looking at the signal sent from Kapenguria to police headquarters? It expressly speaks about this, and surprisingly, this statement was, the signal, as it were, was sent this evening. This signal should have been sent early in the morning to guide the Inspector General of Police, because he's the custodian of information in the National Police Service. Is someone sabotaging the IG, or the IG has no idea how this police force runs? Because this is not the first time you're seeing this.
I think this is a very sad scenario. Dennis, we have lost 6 lives. Not 1, not 2, 6. These are families that their lives have just been terminated. Somebody there has lost a family member. So for the IG to just give us contradicting statements in the evening, I think by now somebody should have been held responsible. Even though Jekonia says that it's not the norm of Kenya to do that, but I think we should start from somewhere.
But remember, in Kenya, anything goes. Remember the Mpeketoni attacks? At first, we were told these are political networks. And then the story changed. I don't know why it got to.
In fact, Jekonia, we are staying with that Al-Shabaab attack. In the last month, Al-Shabaab terror networks in the country have killed more than 10 people. In Lamu, police claim to have killed attackers after they tried to overrun an administration police camp in Manga. It is not clear why the numbers of those injured or dead has not been released to the media. Are we back to fighting terror in our own soil? Jekonia, pick it up from there.
I don't know whether it's terror. It could be anything. We are approaching a political season, and anything goes. Looking at the history of this nation, there are times you just create unrest in some jurisdictions. Yeah, these are conspiracy theories. You just create situations whereby people will see everything is not normal and create the fear in people. And I won't be wrong. Okay, it's my opinion. That's what's happening now. I don't know.
Serious sentiments there. Rosalind, your take?
I might agree with him somehow and not agree with him, because again, you've had the security officer saying that at the end of the day, even for us journalists, your country comes first. There's some information that you can relay. There are others that you can relay later. Like for what happened in Kapenguria, we expected instant information. When it comes to Al-Shabaab, we face so much. Look at the one that what happened in El Ade. The numbers we haven't been told up to today, but we get figures shooting from 180 to 200. Kenyans are still in the dark, so we don't know exactly if it's a strategy to keep Kenyans safe, or it's a war strategy, or just to create an arrest.
Milton, in that earlier statement sent by the Inspector General of Police about the Islamu attack, they spoke about several Al-Shabaab feared dead and others escaping with serious injuries. And it is now emerging that only one person was killed, who was a terror suspect, and one policeman suffered minor injuries. Were we rushing too fast to inform the country that as much as this is ongoing in Kapenguria, we managed to repulse Al-Shabaab attackers in Lamu?
Well, I'm looking at the connection between Kapenguria and Lamu, and somebody trying to create a direct correlation. Obviously, yes, it's a security matter, but it's very unfortunate. Again, from the inconsistency of information that came from Jogo House today on the Kapenguria attacks, I really have a feeling that the police service is rushing to try and prove itself being efficient, yet they are exposing their backside. But so for me, it does not add up. And one other thing that I would want to ask the IG and whoever it is that is involved, how do they come up with these immediate descriptions of Al-Shabaab suspect, Al-Shabaab linked individual and all that? I mean, within few minutes, you're able to be told.
That's what the IG did in the morning.
And I really think, even within the Police Service Act, or within the jargon that defines whatever laws and regulations that govern our security operations, maybe we need to have that dictionary defined in terms of what makes an Al-Shabaab terror attack, that makes it so.
Should the IG and the Interior CS take responsibility for this?
I think they should take responsibility, because what we are seeing here is like people sleeping on intelligence information. If I'm not wrong, maybe they're given the information, and that's why they're very quick when something happens to describe exactly what did happen, because I'm sure they must have had prior information. And even if you go back to the previous attacks that we've had, somehow you'll find that intelligence information was relayed, nothing was acted on. And if you remember what the just visiting Israel Prime Minister said, he said, any information is information, whether you preempt it or you don't believe in it, act, because it's better to save lives than lose lives.
I would have said they must take responsibility, only that I said earlier in Kenya, nobody takes responsibility because it's just too much, and it's creating fear in the citizen. And you see, a citizen should be assured that my government is on top of things.
They pay taxes, they need this.
They need service delivery. So if you have that feeling that the government is not on top of it, then who's on top of it?
Milton, who is on top of things?
That is what I'm saying, but ultimately this might end up on the president's door, because he campaigned on the platform of, we are going to guarantee you security, and security was one of the pillars. It's one of the drivers of economic growth, and if we are then in a situation like this, then I think the president needs to come out and if these guys don't take responsibility, then crack the whip. But on the other hand, is that it's the entire leadership of the nation that needs to come out, and if it doesn't, then the Kenyans have a right within themselves and within the constitution to come out and demand for facts and not just guesswork. And what I mean by that is that I think Article 35 of the Constitution is very clear. I wish people could invoke that and try to get information out of the government, because as it is, I think this is a marketplace, and unacceptable, and it cannot be business as usual. Parliament has to move in, Senate has to move in, the civil society has to move in, the lawyers that were demonstrating the other day now have to come out, because even those people that have been killed, they're also Kenyans, and they have a right to be defended by their government, which has failed.
I mean, the last 2 or 3 weeks now, how many people? 9 people killed by police in this country. Senseless killings. 6 in Kapenguria today, killed by a police officer who showed up in a police station in a beard. Where has this man been That is the biggest question. And again, the killings in Mlolongo the other day of the lawyer, the taxi driver, and the client. Are we staring at a confidence crisis in the National Police Service?
I think
Just in 10 seconds before we move on to the next.
I think we are, because if you look at the trend, it has now gone from junior officers to senior officers. We saw in Muranga, a junior officer shot his senior. We are seeing again in Kapenguria, we are losing the OCS. Is it that there is no confidence within the forces, and that is a very worrying trend.
In fact, indeed worrying. Tonight we are asking you an opinion poll. Should the Internal Security Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaiseri resign for failing to contain insecurity and rogue police officers in the country? Should the Internal Security CS Joseph Nkaiseri resign for failing to contain insecurity and rogue police officers in the country? You can tweet me at Dion Sarigo at KTN News. But moving forward, several supporters of Ugandan opposition leader Kiza Besigye were beaten and roughed up again as police tried to support as supporters tried to cheer on the opposition leader after he was released from prison. I mean, Roslyn, this has been going on in Uganda. We have our own issues here in Kenya, but it's comical to say the least.
I don't know what I can say about Uganda. I don't know if the democracy is confined as much as they talk about a democratic state, because you've seen some unbelievable things happen in Uganda and we don't see anything happening. If you do the same in Kenya, I'm sure the civil society and everybody will be out in the streets. Here, you
can see the video there.
You can see the opposition leaders been in and out, treason, and we are seeing all this. We are not seeing anybody speaking up. The people who speak up, they are arrested and detained.
I think, let me say this. These people are cut from the same cloth, the Kenyan police and the Ugandan police.
But they're not, they don't come from the same.
But the Kenyan police are not extreme.
They are not extreme. The killings that we are seeing here.
Look at the beatings. I mean, why should you
which one is better?
A boda boda guy.
Yeah.
Just look at the screen now.
In this agent time, for that kind of absolute lack of civility from a police force, I think it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And I saw this and I looked back to 1994 when the genocide happened in Rwanda, and later it was, the story is that the world watched as Rwanda, killed itself. And we could probably be heading to that kind of situation where, for fear of one man, or for fear of speaking out against a so-called man who holds his country with a firm grip, we are just letting Uganda slip into a situation where maybe it may not be as worse as may have been the case with the genocide in Rwanda, but I think it's just not acceptable.
Jekonia, my producer Paris Muredi says that policeman who was captured on TV clobbering that boda guy has been arrested. Should he be charged, or is a Museveni guy should just be let go?
Of course,
there he is.
He'll be charged. He'll be charged, but where do they end? That is a question we need to ask. But I have to say this, that it's very, very worrying what's happening not only in Uganda. We saw the IEBC protests here the other day. Were they any better? That is the question we should be asking. Were they any better than what we are seeing in Uganda? People are clobbered on the streets.
Can things get any better, Roslyn?
For Kenya or Uganda?
For Uganda, for East Africa?
For Uganda, I don't think so, because this is not the first time we are seeing this in Uganda. And I think the international community and even the regional countries that talk about the East African bloc should speak about it, because we've not seen that coming out. We've seen when issues are in Uganda, nobody speaks. People are quiet. But this is a regional bloc. If we want to come as a region, the way we talk about East African community, then we should start critiquing about the ills that we see. Kenya cannot be the leading hub in the region and not afford to correct Uganda when Uganda is doing wrong. I know it's a sovereign state, but sometimes it's good to also correct a friend.
Even Sudan is happening, South Sudan, that is. Nobody is talking about it in the region, because probably, you see, it happens that when you have a problem, when you see a problem in your neighbor's home, and you know you might have the same problem, you might not be.
But
you
it's a
might be
Kenyan
tempted
thing,
not
Milton.
to
You'll,
talk about
you'll
it.
agree with me, Jaconia, that it's a Kenyan thing that if it does not happen to me, then
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not about me.
but we've also seen before. It's not entirely a Kenyan thing. I think it's about who do I wine and dine with, because
Yeah.
we've seen when it was happening in South Sudan, we saw regional heads of state moving in there and saying you must respect a democratically elected president. We saw it happen in Burundi not so long ago, and the regional heads of state were all over saying you must protect, even when there are salient issues that legitimately need to be addressed. So I think what is required, what is critical for the region and the international community, because this is a security issue, obviously a human rights question, perhaps as we do the common market concepts, we need to come up with specific protocols on, the conduct of, like the customs authorities, be it the police service, be it border controls and immigration. Those are common protocols that I think we then need to look at, and perhaps introduce that component of civility in the armed forces as one of the protocols that then we must adhere to, just to do like with the customs
Rosalind,
and
before
immigration.
we take a short break, Rosalind, are we likely to lose it? I mean, we've been good friends with Uganda until they looked the other way, went to Tanzania to cut a few deals there. We are not in talking terms, as it were. Are we likely to see this?
I don't think that coming from Kenya. That's the last thing I will expect from Kenya. We value the trade relations, the diplomatic relations we have, to the extent that we cannot directly condemn what is happening. What maybe we'll just say is that Uganda should sort out their issues.
Exactly, but we have more other issues to sort out with you after this break. But tonight we're asking you, should the Internal Security Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaiseri resign for failing to contain insecurity and rogue police officers in the country? Should the Interior CS resign for failing to contain insecurity and rogue police officers in the country? We're taking a short break. Do not go far. Welcome back. And now, former ODM Secretary General Ababu Namwamba has hinted at a third force in Kenyan politics. There has been word that it is time for the electorate to back off from the traditional voting patterns and support a new crop of politicians. A reality check, or the likes of Ababu want to auction their communities to the highest bidder. Milton.
I want to start from the last part of that line, and I think, it is one of those antiques that we see around this time of the year, around this time of the political, period. And if you ask me, third force in politics, I think in Kenya, I don't really think we are there yet, for obvious reasons. I think the electorate, and even within our own, mannerisms, politically speaking, I do not think we are there yet. Reason being, our politics is driven by, the richest people around, and therefore for them to get, for a third force to come, I think we need a level of economic emancipation, if you like, for us to be able to get there. Our capacity to make decisions and follow people for their policies and not for their money, like where I come from. It's very difficult to get elected if you come there. People are always asking,
But someone will say, Milton, that now that politics in this country has been about who knows who, who is the son of who, there's a chance for the likes of Ababu to rise to national politics, Rosalind.
Ababu is just pulling a bluff, if you ask me. I don't think he can pull a third force in Western region, because what we know and what we are seeing there is whereby leaders realigning themselves based on the big parties that we see. Based on the character that Ababu has demonstrated in the past years, especially in this current regime, I don't think he's a person to be trusted. I think he's a politician on hire.
Zekonia, I mean, those are serious allegations. Those are your views.
I can
I think I agree with them.
You do?
I agree with Rosalind.
Yes.
Yes. That smaller parties are aligning themselves to bigger parties. Look at what New for Kenya did the other day. They said we've folded up, and yesterday they were in State House. So if they want to create a bigger Western alliance, then to me, it won't work.
Milton, look at it this way. Ababu Namwamba in Western Province, Mungaro in Coast
Oh my.
Region, formerly Coast Province. You have Mutua in Eastern Province. You have a senator from this senator who said William Ruto is not guaranteed second.
Njoroge.
Yes, Senator Njoroge
From Nakuru.
From
Nakuru.
From Nakuru. You have an entire country saying there's a third force emerging. We have to do away with Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. Let's have
All
a
the
new crop
people
of
that
leaders.
you've talked about are working towards a particular end. They are just positioning themselves so that when the jostling for support begins between the two horses, as it were, they will, either be on the left or the right. And the reason I'm saying that, it is not until we recalibrate our way of doing politics, then this idea of somebody, thinking that you're going to emerge and upset the status quo, as it were, from the face of it, I think remains a dream, if you ask me. With all due respect to Ababu Namwamba, I think he's a brilliant politician, a smart individual, academically astute and all that, but I really don't think that this is the right time to pull the kind of stand that you pull it.
He can't run for president, Roslyn.
I don't think he can. With the little politics I know about Western, I think the only two politicians who will move with any political party and make it to parliament, that was the late Soita Shitanda and the current senator for Kakamega, Boni Halwat. You remember when they came up with even the CAP party, and people just voted them in because for them, people were looking at them for what they stood for. Now, the current leaders we have...
Bullfighting.
Yeah, bullfighting and all that. He pulls his people with it. Look at Mudavadi. When Mudavadi pulled out of ODM in 2013 and formed his own party, UDF party, he will not even have garnered votes in his own Vihiga backyard. Now, here we have a Babu who is not even contesting for presidency, but contesting for Budalangi constituency. But he wants to form a third force. Is he on trial, or is just testing waters in Western?
There are mamas from Western Province that at the end of the day, all these individuals will coalesce around Musalia Mudavadi. I mean, this is a serious force to reckon with. Serious third force. Finally emerging, Jekonia.
I don't see that happening. You see, somebody asked, if you are a young man and you want to marry, and you go to your dad always that I want to marry, and they haven't seen your bride, what are you expecting them to pay dowry for? That is the question we should be asking about.
The next question we should be asking is, CORD leader Raila Odinga heads to Western region in the coming week in what political pundits say is a trip aimed at steadying an ODM ship that is sinking. While Raila is making forays, Uhuru Kenyatta is hosting new Ford Kenya officials at State House. Change of strategy for Jubilee. It has been William Ruto making inroads to Western Kenya. Has he lost it? Uhuru Kenyatta has taken over?
I think from a Jubilee perspective, I think it is a question of the captain now seizing the moment and says he also needs to go out there, because the lieutenants, yes, they may have done the groundwork, but the actual harvesting has got to be done by the captain himself. And I think that is where we are, especially for Jubilee in the perspective of Western. Reason being that, Western is undecided from what we can see, quote unquote, what Ababu and New Ford Kenya are trying to do. It tells you that within Western, you can still scoop a considerable chunk of votes, politically speaking, maybe more than was the case for Jubilee in the last elections. But for Raila Odinga, I think Raila Odinga has almost a religious following in Western. We've seen it before. Musalia Mudavadi has tried to dismantle his impact in Western. It didn't work out in the last elections. In 1992, Masinde Muliro tried to galvanize the Luhya vote. The late Michael Kijana, Wamalwa Kijana tried it. They haven't quite succeeded. I don't think Ababu Namwamba would be. Like I said, he may have the software, which is the charisma and everything, but the hardware is still, politically speaking, he's still not grounded enough. And if we were to see an upset on the status quo as it was, that is Uhuru Kenyatta for Jubilee and Raila Odinga in CORD, then the strategy has got to be just beyond the emotions and everything that we see on the table.
Roslyn, CORD leader will be in Western for 5 days. He must be a troubled man, or is he?
I don't think that will be the reason why he's going to Western. Remember, they have indicated that this the planned trip did not just come with the voices, the mamas that have been coming from Western region. It was a trip that had been planned earlier. It's only that it coincides with the time that he's having issues with leaders from the region. But that said and done, Western region is a vote-rich region, and Raila has to go there, not because he has a religious following there, but where you have your votes, you must consolidate them. So I think what is taking Raila there is to consolidate what he has and also extend his net wider so that he can also bring on board more people as Jubilee also extends his leg to also get what they can get from Western just as they look for the next election.
His former SG, Babu Namwamba Jakonia, is saying what stops us as Luyas to come up with our own political party. They have, to some extent, portrayed ODM as a Luo party. That is far from the truth. How does he balance this going down to Western at a time when Luyas, quote unquote, are saying we must start having a discussion about what next for us?
I think he's wrong in every aspect. They're telling us that we need to have Luyas having their own party. Let me say this. What Raila is doing and what the president is doing are one and the same thing. If you cannot go to the mountain, let the mountain come to you. So Raila has decided to go to the mountain. But the mountain has decided to come to the president.
In the name of New Ford Kenya?
New Ford Kenya. And so we are still going to see Western being into different splinter. There will be splinter groups.
But remember again, there have been failed efforts to bring the Luyas together through the Luya unity thing. We've seen Jirongo push it. We've seen other leaders do it. We've seen Senator Wetangula and the rest trying to bring. And always, whenever they try to come together, there's always the issue of backstabbing. Oh, we came together, so and so was not with us. So unless they sort out those issues, and that is why we were saying that if those leaders are not genuine with the cause of their political journey, then they will never find where they will come together. Either they will be divided among the Bukusis and the Maragolis.
Milton, in less than 5 seconds.
Yes, I want to say this. I think what the Luya leadership has not known, which is what Raila knows, is what divides the Luyas. And every time Raila goes there, he talks about his roots. He traces his roots there. And it is easier for people to fancy their chances with someone they can relate with, as opposed to trying to bring a toddler into a table of nine.
Moving on, talking about Raila Odinga, in 2012, Raila Odinga surprised his political competitors by declaring Kibaki Tosha during the Grand Coalition. During the Grand Coalition period, Raila Odinga's side tried several times to ask President Kibaki to declare Raila Odinga Tosha, but the old man avoided that discussion like some plague. Have a listening to what happened last night on JKL.
Yes.
What if Baba said, for instance, Mutunga Tosha?
You know,
Mutunga,
first of all,
It's over.
first
It's
of all,
finished. It's finished.
first of
Game
all,
shot.
Jeff,
If William Mutunga were endorsed by Raila and Kalonzo Musyoka and Wetangula and Mudavadi, it's finished. It's over. It's game shot.
Milton, I mean, Raila Odinga is not electable. He has to declare someone Tosha.
Well, I think it goes back, and with all due respect, I think this is a family that I hold great respect for the history and how they have stood for this country. Remember, pre-independence, his own father was able to say, we will not accept this thing called independence until our own brother is released, and later on we saw what Raila did. But I think maybe the country would come to the reality that maybe Raila Odinga could be the president that Kenya may never have, for the reasons like we have seen. He has been backstabbed enough times. The same people he trusted and cut deals with have politically, abandoned him when he needed them most. And for me, this is his last shot. How the things are panning out, you can't give him, 100% go. He still would have a mountain to climb. He's even alluding to him trying to look for mountains as opposed to, when his competitors are having mountains, look for them. So for me, yes, it could just be a reality. And I'm sorry to say, with all due respect, he may be Kenya's president. That we could never have.
I mean, Jekonia, his best days are behind him, or this is just political noise?
I think it's political. The man Raila never seems to get vanquished. he just doesn't run out of steam. If his days were over, then there is one man who would walk into the streets and nobody would want to touch him. But look at the fanatical following that he still commands. So he might say Tosha, but I know there are people whose hearts will be heavy and say no. You have to go the full steam.
Roslyn.
I think Raila is just an enigma. Is somebody you can't understand how he plays his politics. But just to allude to what the leaders were saying, yes, he's one person who, when he endorses you, you are a candidate that can be sold. But look at it. Either people fear his leadership, maybe people just want him to be there to keep the political tempo there. Maybe that's why people will not trust him to give him the presidency. But I think he has still a chance. It's only
There's
the way he
something about
played.
this man, Milton, that,
Yes.
I mean, his votes keep on increasing. In the last election, he had 5.3 million votes that seemed to cut across the entire country. He cannot be a regional leader. He cannot be this kingmaker over and over again. He has to become president. What do you
I
think?
have said, he's a great man. I think the sacrifices he has made for this country can never be gainsaid. We need not repeat them. But I think in terms of him as an individual, holding that power, he has the following, he has the numbers, but then what matters the most? Like, I'm a big football person, and sometimes you can play and possess for 85%. But what matters the most is that goal that makes the difference, and I think that is quite the final ball that Raila hasn't got right in that box. But in terms of his influence, there is no doubt about that.
He still has some time between now and 2017 for his last bullet, Roslyn.
In Kenya, you can never say anything. It's still very early for us to declare him inelectable. The only thing is for us to see how he plays his card right.
Kabisa, Budalangi, Member of Parliament, Ababu Namwamba failed to appear on the popular political show Jeff Koinange Live. The MP did not give any reason for his failure. Did he chicken out? Just have a listening to Jeff Koinange.
As of the weekend, former ODM Secretary General Ababu Namwamba had confirmed he was coming. KOT, Kenyans on Twitter, came out overwhelmingly and said, you have to balance this interview. Why don't you invite Edwin Sifuna, the coup leader? And I did. I sent out a new poster showing Ababu Namwamba and Edwin Sifuna. Would you know what happened next? Your guess is as good as mine. Ababu sent a tweet saying he doesn't punch below his weight. This is a man who had endorsed Edwin Sifuna back in the day. So, bottom line, Ababu's not here.
Milton, your thoughts as we wind up?
Chickened out.
Probably the heat is too much. That is how any anti-Ababu person would look at it. But the flip side of that could be he is being strategic about how he's exposing himself to the media and the public. Obviously, because the heat could be just too much at the moment.
Jaconia, just
He's saying, in one of his tweets, he said that he cannot punch below his weight. I wonder where he's getting this imaginary weight from to say that he can't punch below his weight. That's what I'm wondering. It baffles me.
Rosalind, what is on your mind as we wind up?
I think Ababu is biting more than he can chew, because now where he is, it's for the public to decide.
Kabisa, we asked you, should the interior security cabinet secretary Joseph Kaiseri resign for failing to contain insecurity and drug police officers in the country? The results: 51% of you say yes, 49% of you say no. That's where we must end it. See you next week in another edition of News Sources.
Ababu is just
How come story Ababu inakuja kwa issue every day?
Wacha nione Toshkini kama ameweka kitu, wacha niangalie.